Okay. Good evening and welcome to the October 17th, 2024 meeting of the Pleasant Hill Architectural Review Commission. To call this meeting to an order, will you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You get a roll call?
Commissioner Kapoor?
Here.
Vice Chair Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Patari?
Here.
Commissioner Weir?
Here.
And Chair Johansson.
Here. At this time, the public is welcome to address the Architectural Review Commission on any item with the exception of items scheduled for public hearing. There will be an opportunity for the public to comment on other agenda items at the time they are discussed. Are there any public comments this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to the minutes of this September 5th hearing. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I motion to approve the minutes from, what was the date? 4 weeks, September 5th. Thank you.
Second.
Commissioner Kapoor?
I'm sorry, I can't remember. Was I part of this meeting?
This is like the golf course.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Patari?
Yes.
Commissioner Weir?
Yes.
And Chair Johansson.
Abstain. Okay. Now we'll move on to the public hearings. Item number 1, ENT 2024-0030, the Royale exterior modifications and signage at 2190 Contra Costa Boulevard. Can we get a staff report?
Yes, thank you, Chair Johansson. We are reviewing requests for architectural review and for sign permits for a new restaurant called the Royale over at the Courtyard Shopping Center across the street, across Contra Costa Boulevard. The architectural review would include a new exterior building color, new exterior awning, and new exterior light fixtures. And the sign permit would be reviewing 3 new wall-mounted signs. Here's a look at the project site and more specifically the tenant space in the Courtyard Shopping Center. This is the space formerly occupied by Boston Market. And the signage would be in similar places as Boston Market signage. We'll take a look at those locations. There's 3 signs, one on the east, one on the south, and one on the west elevations. So facing the parking lot, facing Contra Costa Boulevard, and facing the driveway into the shopping center parking lot. Here's a look at the existing building elevations as they are today. The applicant would be repainting these surfaces and has dropped off a color sample that is in front of Chair Johansson right now. It's a color by Restoration Hardware called the Right White. The Right White. And that would just be a single exterior color, so it wouldn't be dual toned anymore with the column and arcade features having a different color. They would like to replace the light fixtures for the tenant space. You can see the existing sort of can-shaped sconce fixtures that flank the entrance on the east side. They also flank the entrance. There's another storefront window and door system on the west side facing Contra Costa Boulevard. So these 2 areas would receive new lighting. The applicant's proposing new awnings. They would remove the 2 awnings from Boston Market that face Contra Costa Boulevard. Those would be gone and they would not be replaced. They would place a new awning in a new location, which is on that left side of that left picture next to the parking lot entrance on the east side. So here's some renderings that the applicant has provided to us showing the east elevation with the new color, the new awning, the new fixtures, and the new building color and signage, if I didn't say that, sorry. The sign, it's individually mounted channel letters. They're 14-inch tall letters. They're 3 inches deep, and they would be halo and internally illuminated. One thing we'll point out later on when we discuss the design guidelines is that the design guidelines for signage actually encourages signs to have a width proportion of no more than 2/3 of the wall surface that they're mounted to. This sign exceeds that. If you're just measuring that inset portion of the wall surface, when you include the embedded columns on each side, that would increase the width and then the sign would comply. So the ARC could consider approving the sign still, even though it doesn't meet that specific 2/3 proportion requirement. Here's a look at the south elevation. There's another sign on this elevation. It's also individual channel letters, wall mounted, internally and halo lit. These are 8-inch tall letters, also 3 inches deep. And the same issue here, the proportion of the width doesn't meet the 2/3 max proportion. So the ARC still could determine that it's in substantial compliance with our sign design guidelines and allow for it. Or you could ask the applicant to reduce the scope or scale of that sign to meet that proportion. And finally, the west-facing elevation. This is looking at Contra Costa Boulevard elevation. There's a logo sign, so it's aluminum logo cabinet essentially. That's also 3 inches deep like the other channel letters. It's 24 inches in diameter, and it's internally illuminated and not halo illuminated. You can see the storefront window system there with the 2 new proposed light fixtures. And then an image of the light fixture is also available on this slide. It's called the Beckman sconce, also by Restoration Hardware. Thank you. So to look at these design guidelines, the signs are in substantial conformance. They are efficient, they're legible, they use channel letters, they're high quality materials and designs, and they are internally illuminated, and they are using basic colors. Where it doesn't necessarily comply is the proportion of the width, the 2/3 width. And looking at the other non-residential design guidelines, the paint color, the light fixtures, et cetera, staff found that the use of the colors is appropriate, and the commission could discuss the colors in juxtaposition to the rest of the shopping center. However, we did point out that the light fixture design is a bit of a departure from the existing light fixtures used throughout the shopping center. And we're seeking input from the ARC as to whether these new light fixtures are compatible and suitable for the location, even though they appear more like a residential style light fixture. We would also point out that the proposed light fixtures are not shielded and will let light to spill out in all directions, which could result in glare along Contra Costa Boulevard, could, result in light spilling out onto adjacent properties. So just want to bring that to your attention as well. And so staff recommends that the ARC discuss those items from the citywide design guidelines that we just mentioned. And our recommendation is that the ARC review the proposal, receive public testimony, accept the CEQA exemption, and if deemed appropriate, approve the sign permit subject to the attached conditions of approval with any modifications as directed by the commission this evening. Thank you very much.
Any questions for staff?
Was this the only light fixture that was reviewed, or there were other options that were floated around?
This was the only one that was reviewed.
So on that elevation, do we have a sense of how far the white would extend down the building?
So there's a tenant door. If you just go just outside the scope of that picture, sorry, I might have a better picture of that. There's another tenant entrance down there. Sorry, I did not get a good picture of that. So what's that? The hair salon, yeah, so it could make sense to terminate the color at the
On the
90-degree
street side,
internal.
it terminates at the column right there. This one shows it going further.
Right, this one, you mean on the other east-west elevation?
Yeah,
It terminates at the column.
yeah. And
Maybe
this
you're
one-
suggesting that it terminate at the column here as well.
I'm just unclear where it terminates from that picture, so it's just a question.
Yeah.
So the idea right now would be it goes all the way down to the next one feature that's similar to this with columns and windows.
There's no column. I believe it's a storefront door system. It's an internal corner, interior corner. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just storefront. Right? Sort of at an
corner.
angle.
Okay.
Just one another question on the south elevation. I noticed there was some blurring. You couldn't read the, was that just the shadow
Shadows.
cast on it? Yeah, I don't have any problems with the signage. I was just wondering if that would be legible in certain times of the day.
This is the, probably the quality of the photograph
Oh, okay,
that was transferred, but we got high quality renderings
okay.
that were submitted.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant, would you like to add anything to the discussion? Yes, please. Please say, share your name and.
My name is Leandra Davis, and I am the project designer and also the contract administrator for this project. And I represent the tenant and client for the Royal Eatery. And we've been working on this for quite a while, this project, because the Boston market left this building in a horrifying condition. So we cleaned it up, restored it somewhat, modified it. However, based on the colors and our relationship with RH, Restoration Hardware, we decided to kind of incorporate more of a modern approach to the project as far as recommending colors that were consistent with some of the newer developments that are going on within the Pleasanton area. The right white color is an RH color that's used in one of their flagship stores over in San Francisco, as at the historic Bethlehem Steel building. And the light fixture is not residential. It may have a residential appeal, but the light fixture is 23 inches tall, so it's enormous. So it would fit into the scale of the existing light fixtures somewhat, which are very huge and cylindrical and so forth. The light fixtures themselves, as typical with an RH product or a light fixture, uses a low voltage or low wattage light bulb. Usually it's like a 40-watt bulb. So it's a filament bulb. So there's no glare to the filament bulb. It's not like a bright white LED light that kind of glares into traffic or whatever. It's just an illuminated product. So it won't have any reflective issues or whatever. And it's per their product brand. Then we have Tom, who can comment on the signage, who's in charge of the sign design, who can comment on that aspect of it.
Okay.
Hi, Tom Schnur with Sequoia Signs and Graphics. First of all, as always, thank you for volunteering to be here tonight. So I think the signs speak for themselves, and the report outlines pretty much everything. The only concern that has been mentioned is the overall width. And I think at both locations, if you look at them, I mean, for sure in that front location, if you add the pillars in, you could add the entire wall in. It does not look out of place, and the 2/3 really, I don't think, comes into play. Even on that other corner, yes, it's 2/3 of that pillar, but that wall really has, windows beyond that and extension. And so it really doesn't seem out of place, nor is it inconsistent with what Boston Market had on there prior. I do have one clarification, and it's an error that some of these things sometimes you don't see until you hear it. We have on our paperwork 3-inch depth on those, and they're actually intended to be 2-inch deep. And speaking of legibility or readability, when you have a really long letter or return, it would get harder to read from the side. So that's particularly with the smaller letters, we don't want to go 3 inches. We really prefer to go 2 inches. And so I'd like to amend that amendment.
Quick question for staff. Are there any issues with the reduction to 2 inches as far as design guidelines?
No, there's no changes to our review.
Do you need me for any questions or should I?
Just a question on the lighting, back to the lighting again. I mean, I like I like the signage because it's pretty subtle and it's a halo. It's basically that calls out for the fonts just by having a halo behind it. Didn't you look at a similar theme for the lighting where you would basically have the light expressed in a more subtle fashion as a halo to match, kind of be in alignment with the signage? Because the light seems to be spilling out, like calling attention to itself while the. Yeah, no, I'm talking about the light fixtures, the 28-inch light fixtures. Because they're pretty high, 28 inches, and it's not shielded at all. It's basically spilling out all the light. I mean, just a general question.
Yeah, thank you for that. We can possibly recommend a different light fixture for that. And I don't think we're in a hurry to go out and buy it right now, but it is available to us. But if it's a fixture like a brass fixture that is cylindrical, like the ones that we have that are there now, where it lights up and down. Again, those light fixtures have filament bulbs, and those filament bulbs are very low in wattage. So it's mostly decorative. So it's like if you're using it for a light source, it's really not going to provide that. It'll kind of illuminate or highlight the areas, but the light's not going to spread out because of the filament element within each bulb.
Any,
I'm curious, for, on Contra Costa Boulevard, you have the logo on the wall, but it does not say Royale anywhere.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Could you speak to the intent behind that?
Well, the logo is just the brand, and we are hoping that people would recognize the restaurant by the brand, but the logo is right next to, just right around the little corner, the Royal Eatery, which represents the logo. So they'll play off of each other, and they're very close in proximity.
Yes, they are. My fear would be that somebody driving past may miss it.
Okay. But if they are driving in the north direction, they'll see the Royal Eatery, and the logo is it's basically to the right. As someone is driving in that direction, it's to the right of that. So when they're driving in that direction, they'll see facing them the Royal Eatery. If we can, Andrew, pull up one of the renderings if possible. That's it. That's the elevation that they'll see driving north on Contra Costa Boulevard.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
any other questions, Stephanie? No?
And thank you for asking that, Kapoor.
Okay, anything else? Okay, now is the time for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on this item? Seeing none, you will bring it to the commission for discussion. Any initial thoughts someone would like to lead out with?
I'm fine with the design intent. My only concern was a little bit on the light fixtures, the light spillage, but he made that, he gave a good explanation on it, so.
They seem like more of a decorative feature than for
I was just
illumination
trying to
area
see if
lights.
it was trying to align with the theme of the signage
Mhm.
being a halo.
Yeah, for the signage, I'm good with too, the logo and the wording, because when you do drive down there, you see, that's what you'll see is the sign. And if you're driving the other direction, you shouldn't be looking over there and it's covered by trees. So wall color is great. Love that color. It looks fantastic on the rendering. So thank you for providing that. Light fixtures, I'm okay, I'm good with them, especially after the additional explanation. And awnings as well, they look nice.
Pottsville.
Everything seems fine to me. If the one, this sign right here just strikes me as maybe a little bit slightly big for that space, but not something I'd fall on my sword over. The other one it faces interior to the side anyway, so I thought that one looked fine.
The previous owner, sorry, I was looking at the pictures from whoever the previous owner was, Boston something. And all the locations where the new signages are, the old signages were also there.
Yeah.
So I guess it just went with, and in the interest of like not cluttering the top, maybe they went on the left side. Like one
There is a
signature.
rather prominent downspout on this corner. I don't know, that's not on the rendering, so
Yeah.
you kind of want to, I wouldn't want it to interfere because it's
Ah.
probably pretty close to that.
It's gonna take it out. No, but I will definitely work around that.
So it may need to be reduced in size a little bit just because of that downspout or. I know. Well,
Just the rendering.
yeah, so it could be. Yeah.
It's a little crowded with the downspout.
I mean, I tend to, when applicants come in with something subtle, I tend to be like, okay, that's your choice, and not to push for something more
Yeah.
dramatic. So I think it's fine. Okay, would someone, what about the building colors that, like where it terminates? Does anyone have any other thoughts on that, or is it acceptable, or even, painting a portion of the building as opposed to the whole building? Does it work?
I find the overall proposal pretty good.
Chair Johansson,
Yes.
we're looking at the existing building right now, and we noticed that there's also a light fixture on the south side. So on this image, on the right-hand side of the building, there is another light fixture. And we wonder if it was omitted on purpose or in error? Okay,
So there would be another one.
so would you keep the existing fixture? Okay, okay.
I'll keep that one.
And that's how it is now. It's painted the same color as the body color.
Anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
Get a second?
Yeah, I second that.
Commissioner Kapoor,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Patari, Commissioner Weir,
Yes.
and Chair Johansson.
Yes. Thank you. Good luck.
Oh, and I'm going to also make a comment just on the color. So Restoration Park, their colors are very unique, and their colors have drops of black in it. Just the brightness of it. So it's a strange thing, but the colors they work very well. So is not going to be a stark like whatsoever. It's the strangest science. And that's why I would use that.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now move on to item number 2. ENT 2024-0026 Wells Fargo sign permit at 699 Contra Costa Boulevard.
This request is a sign permit request. Yes. This is a request for a sign permit to replace existing signage at a Wells Fargo bank location. Brief background, the property was developed back in 1968. In 2006, the ARC approved a architecture review and sign permits for exterior modifications and new signage at the site. And then again, in 2012, the city most recently approved another sign permit to replace and to update that exterior signage. That approved signage is what you see there today. And that is what we're reviewing for another replacement. This Wells Fargo is located at 699 Contra Costa Boulevard at the northeast corner of Golf Club Road and Contra Costa Boulevard. There's 4 wall-mounted signs that will be reviewed, one on the south elevation, one on the west, and 2 on the north. The second one on the north is an ATM sign, and the others are all Wells Fargo signs. The 5th sign under review is a monument sign. It's the existing monument structure with a reface, so just the new sign face. There was an additional 6th sign included in the application that staff determined is exempt from the sign permit requirements, and so we won't be reviewing that. Here's a look at the building frontage at the corner of Golf Club and Contra Costa Boulevard, and you can see clearly the red Wells Fargo signs. You can see 2 of them mounted on the building and then a monument sign along Contra Costa Boulevard. And here are some existing versus proposed elevations, starting with the south elevation. They'll be replacing the signage. The new updated Wells Fargo branding wants to put red letters on a white background. So this is in contrast to their previous signage. And it's also not necessarily in alignment with our design guidelines, which for daytime contrast encourages light colored letters on a darker background. One thing we did provide was the branding guidelines from Wells Fargo, which sort of stipulates what they cannot do with their branding. To achieve light letters on a red background, they would have to offset the letters, meaning not centered, but offset, left adjusted. And it would probably not look right in the sign area that they're provided. And so that's why they're using the red letters on the white background. Here's a look at the west facing elevation facing Contra Costa Boulevard. So the size and shape and everything is very similar. What the previous applicant had done was they designed essentially backer panels that are top mounted to the bottom of the wood or the wood structure member. And then they have individual channel letters mounted on those backer panels. On this elevation facing the parking lot, you can see the Wells Fargo sign. You can also see the ATM sign on the lower right-hand corner. You can still see the ATM sign there. And here's a look at the monument sign. Just a reface of the existing sign. The structure and everything else stays the same. So it does conform with the majority of our sign design guidelines. It is efficient and legible. It uses channel letters. It does use them on a backer panel. It has individual letters. It's high quality design and materials. They use internal illumination, which is encouraged. And the colors are simple and basic. Some areas staff wanted to note that it doesn't necessarily conform with our design guidelines is with the use of the light colors or the dark colored letters on the light background, as well as a proportion requirement that we discussed in the last item. So one of the signs, and we can go back and look at it again, is exceeds 2/3 of the width of the wall surface that it's mounted to. That's the west-facing sign facing Contra Costa Boulevard. So we just wanted to note that for possible ARC discussion. That would be the sign right here. If you just look at that projecting wall surface that the sign is mounted to, it exceeds the 2/3. It's almost 100% of the wall surface. That being said, the commission could still decide that it's appropriate and has a good proportion for the entire elevation, if you want to include the rest of the elevation. With that, staff recommends that the ARC discuss the design guidelines that recommend a 2/3 proportion and the use of light colors on a dark background to enhance daytime contrast. The ARC can approve the signs as proposed if it finds them in substantial conformance with the sign design guidelines. And we also recommend that the ARC review the proposal, receive public testimony, accept the CEQA exemption, and if deemed appropriate, approve the sign permit subject to the attached conditions of approval and any modifications made here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
On this elevation, the west elevation, the canopy seems to project pretty far out from that wall. How much does it project out? Because this photograph is taken from a distance, so you can see the sign, but as you get closer to the building.
This might give you a better perspective.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do we have any illustration that came through for light text on a darker background that doesn't work for Wells Fargo?
As far as the branding
Yes.
guidelines go,
Yes.
can you repeat your question?
So currently, we're not in compliance, or the proposal is not in compliance because there are light letters on a dark background, right?
Because they're proposing dark letters on a lighter background. So the red on the white background, our design guidelines generally encourage light colors on a dark background, like that monument sign that you're looking at. Okay, that would enhance daytime contrast is the idea. So that's why we raised it as a discussion item. And if you're asking about if there's a possibility or something in the branding guidelines that would allow them to achieve that,
Yes.
their response was that there isn't. The monument sign, I suppose, is treated differently than a wall-mounted sign. And so they'd like to propose, or they're asking for approval of the white background.
Well,
Yeah,
Could you explain again, what it was that you said about the offset?
sure. In your packet, you should have the branding guidelines, and it might be a little clearer to explain it if you're looking at the guidelines. Oh, we didn't? Okay.
I didn't see
Oh,
any.
it's one of the attachments to the staff report on the online agenda.
Hmm.
Hold on one moment. We'll see if we can share it on the big screen. that's fine. Okay, so, okay. So the first page on the branding guidelines, I think maybe illustrates what I'm trying to explain. You see the Wells Fargo, the white letters on the red background, it's offset. So the red, I suppose, becomes like a ribbon. And the red letters on the white background allows them to center the letters on the white background. So on the small sign panels that they're proposing on the structure, having the letters offset they don't believe would give them enough letter size because they'd have to reduce the size of the signage because these signs are smaller. Here's a better example as well. So the red letters on the white background, these are their branding guidelines. Allows the red letters to be centered on the white background, like above where Shannon just scrolled past. And then the white letters need to be offset on the red background. So that's why they're proposing the red letters and white background.
Okay, I see now. Thank you. Could you scroll down so we see the illustrations at the bottom? Yeah, thank you. I'm just focusing in on two words, guidelines and preferred. Both of which, neither of which is required.
I mean, they also do individual channel letters.
There's that too.
And so, it could be any color background.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So. Okay. Any other questions for staff? Okay, would the applicant like to add anything to the discussion? Okay, are you from Wells Fargo or from the sign manufacturer? Okay, thank you. So are there any questions from the commissioner for the sign manufacturer?
Yeah, just one. It's more a technical question than a.
Are you open to answering questions? Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Hello, Jose Fernandez.
So on your west elevation, I'm just looking at your section and the Wells Fargo, the channel letters are separated from the back panel with a gap, which makes sense. There's a standoff, but there's no standoff between the back panel and the wall itself. I mean, it's a pretty large sign.
Yeah, it's flat. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, no, I know it's flat. What I'm saying is, did you all think of providing any gap between that larger back face and the building wall itself with some kind of a standoff?
Oh, like you want to
I mean,
space it?
when you have, from a maintenance standpoint, when it starts raining, there's a lot of water that accumulates on the top of that sign and it starts to discolor the wall also.
Sorry, can you repeat that? Are you saying like you to have a
So
spacer?
your sign type E04
Yeah,
on the west elevation.
the main entrance one.
Yeah, if you look at the section through it, there's a gray toned wall shown, then in outboard of that wall, there's the back panel. And then the signage, the Wells Fargo, the letters, the channel letters are mounted on that with some standoffs.
Are you talking about the one hanging or the this one right here? Sorry.
Look, this
Yeah, yeah,
panel that you see,
yeah.
there's no separation of that from the building wall.
That what do you mean, like the room? Sorry.
It's in your section, it doesn't show a gap. So what I'm trying to say is that could be a maintenance issue overall. When it rains, the water starts accumulating up on the top.
Oh, okay,
So you
okay.
start discoloring the wall next to it. So I was wondering if there was some way of looking at a standoff that separates that, so you allow the water to go through. Not,
I think the actual, the signs, they have like holes in the bottom that, I forgot what they're called.
no, I'm not talking about the signs. The signs are fine because they're separated from the main panel behind. But I'm talking about the back panel, the rectangular band that you see behind.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Usually the hose are sealed off. Okay, I'm sorry, I was confused. Yeah, the hose when we, they're on wood, so we use sealant also for like lag screws or whatever it is through boats. We nuts, washers, and then sealant, which is like a silicone so water doesn't go through.
So you still allow, if there's any water accumulation in the top?
Yeah.
It allows the water to drain through behind the panel?
Sorry?
So.
I'm sorry.
I mean, it's not, it's.
I think that's kind of beyond what, it's a functional thing. Other ones, like the ATM sign shows a standoff.
Yeah, all of
Um,
them show a standoff except for that main
yeah.
panel from
So-
building wall. So,
So I think that would be good to have. It appears that with both the ATM sign and the wall sign that we're currently discussing, that there's exposed conduit going up to them. And I'm wondering if that's really the case.
For the ATM sign, yeah, are you talking about the J box and the conduit?
Yes,
If it's existing, or are we gonna put it?
I'm wondering if it's exposed. Is it may be existing, but I'm wondering if it is, if you are proposing exposed conduit.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
It is existing.
It
and
is
proposed.
existing.
both, yeah,
And
both,
proposed.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry about that, yeah.
Seems like okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you very much.
Am I
Just-
allowed to ask why the sign's being changed?
It
Like-
seems like it's a rebrand. They've
That's
changed
just
their,
rebranding, yeah, the signs are really, that's,
Their
Wells
standard.
Fargo will be rebranding all of their bank locations, including one coming up on Monument Boulevard as well, I believe.
okay. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you
oh,
very
just,
much.
regarding the standoff, I'm pretty sure they didn't put a standoff just because the old signs are just flat too. So they're like, based on the survey, they're just copying the sign, just rebranding it, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now see if there's any public comment, any public comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the commission for discussion. I think it would look better with the white letters on a dark background.
Second.
I would like to see that option considered and fleshed out, whether that's just individual channel letters or, which do seem like it's an option, or some compromise of their standards. I also feel like the ATM sign has grown significantly large and feels like maybe it could be brought back into scale rather than matching the existing height, match the existing width. It was in the presentation, not in our package. It looked like it had grown. So those are my two comments.
I would agree with the color. I don't know that they would be happy with the white once they see it up there alive. And my second comment is on the west elevation. It looks like the existing is 213 inches wide, so there's about 1.5 inches on either side. Because the wall protrudes out, I would like to see that stay as existing size versus hitting it all the way to the end. It's still above the recommended proportion, but it will match existing. I think if we recommend going any smaller, there might be additional costs and cover up or patchwork or repairs that aren't maybe necessary.
Which sign is that? Is that the,
That was the west, the one from the front, yeah. It's
Increased by 2 inches.
213 to 216.
it's getting,
And that section of the wall, if you look at that perspective angle, it goes, they're recommending it go right up to the edge.
mhm. Okay,
So Commissioner Weir, just to make sure I understand, you're suggesting that they reduce the width to match the sign that's existing right now?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
so that there's a little margin
Yes.
on
yeah.
either side, yes. Any other,
Has the ATM sign just been increased in size or has it also been brought outward?
Which sign was that?
The ATM,
The ATM sign?
yes.
It did enlarge in size.
Same location, large in size.
Same location.
wider?
Wider, much wider.
But it hasn't been brought outward.
No.
Okay.
I agree with everything that's been said. I think the white background looks pretty bad.
Mhm.
The existing, the red goes with the building color, the existing text kind of goes with the building color. That just looks, it just doesn't.
It's unfinished. It feels
Yeah, it looks
unfinished,
Yeah, it looks
incomplete.
unfinished. It sticks out, it's very, I don't mean physically, I mean visually. And the ATM sign going that big goes from 40 inches wide to 71, I think. I mean,
Yeah. It's,
seems kind of unnecessary.
seems out of scale
Yeah, seems,
for like a more pedestrian sign.
yeah.
Same goes for the exit signage as well as the horses that have, the chariot that has gone from, I know I'm feeling a little nostalgic about the chariots from Wells Fargo. It's a personal branding decision. I can't comment on that, but it feels unfinished.
That's a logo, so I'm gonna say monument sign, straight out of there.
The monument sign, I thought she said the exit sign.
Well,
Did you say the exit sign? or
she
the
likes
monument
the stagecoach.
sign? Oh, yeah. It's a bummer that there's no more stagecoach, but,
Yeah.
but the exit sign too
Exit sign as well as this.
is,
Why is it white instead of the white on red?
there's the Y. There are many Ys.
Oh, it's also. sans
It's-
serif. It's not just, did the font also change? Did the font change in the signage?
The font
Uh,
appears to me that it's marginally different.
Yes.
There's some differences if you look at like the W doesn't have a serif on the top
SG,
in
yes.
the middle.
Yeah, the G doesn't.
Um,
Serif.
The S is different. Yeah, the serifs are different.
Is this also a part of the Wells Fargo rebranding guidelines?
Yeah, so if this is
Logo.
this is the new font and new styling that they're moving to for their marketing materials and their signage. It's something that we frequently see with banks and gas stations. Every 7 to 10 years, they come in and they rebrand and update the look and feel of the location. So
So it sounds to me like we're in agreement. We'd like to see this come back with the suggestions about considering not having dark letters on white backgrounds for signs. reducing the width of the west sign and reducing the width of the ATM sign. Is there anything else?
Oh, also, can we see something that does not have channel letters and they're
Does-
individually lit?
That's what these are? Or does not have a backing panel?
Yes.
What, just wall mounted?
I mean, they're able to consider that. That's also in their design guidelines, but or their standards, so
Mhm.
they could do that. They could come back with that, but just not dark letters on a white background.
And are we saying that for the exit sign too?
I would say for the exit sign and the,
Right.
the other directional signs as well.
Yeah,
Oh, also
dark
three,
background, light letters.
also
Yeah.
the 3-inch departure from the original signage sign on the west elevation.
Yes, I mentioned that. I think, do you have these down?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically just reverse everything.
Now, so I think the west elevation, as far as individual channel letters and exploring that possibility
We
is
could,
pretty
they could
straightforward.
do that since that seems to be also something in their guidelines.
Would you like them to explore individual channel letters on the south and north elevations, which maybe are a little more complicated? to-
If that allows them to maintain their standards, they can do that.
Okay.
So, yeah, if they're exploring it on one elevation, then in the interest of uniformity, yes, for all of them.
So, do we need a motion or any?
Yes.
Okay.
You guys kind of want to bring back in white letters? That get approved?
If we saw it on the building,
Yes. Same exact, design, we just, put you guys want.
Oh,
That was like, another resort.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, we can submit that.
but I think there's still the ATM sign and the directional signs that we would be curious about. I think, yes, that would probably respond to the comments.
Yeah, the directional signage, just to remind the ARC, is exempt from.
Okay, so the
sign code
ATM,
Review at this
or,
point.
but the
Yeah.
ATM sign, could that just be,
We can suggest to them that they change the colors of the exit sign if you want to provide some direction.
that's okay.
Well, it would be,
So at this point, I think we're leaning towards just being able to look at a proposal with a different set of colors
Yeah.
to evaluate.
I think
Okay.
the applicant is saying for the interest of being able to move forward at this time, would we consider looking at the sketch that he has and seeing if that would be appropriate?
The
I
ARC
think
can
would be
review it
better to
and
get-
comment on it, but we'll need to take it in at staff
Yeah.
level and renotice.
Okay, so I think the answer
Yes,
is,
yeah.
yes, that appears to go in the direction that we're looking, but we need to
Mhm.
have it.
You're free to look at it tonight, but we would have to continue the item
Okay,
to,
so we'll continue.
Okay.
So I move to continue the item with the 3 suggestions of reducing the width of the ATM sign to match existing, reducing the width of the west sign to match existing, and to reverse the colors to study doing white letters on a red background. That's my motion.
I second that.
Oh, do we have to, is there availability on the next thing? Do we have to we could do a date certain or a date uncertain
Ye-
or?
Yeah, I mean, it matters a little bit on how fast we can get a resubmittal. We do have availability on our upcoming, whether it's the next one or maybe 2 out, we have availability.
What date's the next one?
November 7th.
So you'd need it probably in like a week and a half back to staff you could turn it back in and then you'd come back on November 7th and we would consider it.
Long drive up from LA, that's why. it's,
Oh,
Oh.
Working at Berkeley.
okay,
But I mean,
okay.
We,
I'm sorry, is everybody here, named Andrew?
that's me.
I have a color board for you.
Okay.
All right, yeah, I didn't know that. Thank you.
we could always continue it with the assumption that we will,
Okay.
try to get it on that and then
But I'll
if,
say uncertain for now. Does that work or? Or do we have to renotice and stuff?
Exactly. So we
Okay,
could,
let's try for the 7th so that we don't have to renotice and so forth. Okay,
okay, so I have the motion on the table to continue to November 7th with the comments you provided.
Commissioner Ware, did you second?
Sorry, did I miss a
It
second?
was already
Okay,
seconded.
perfect.
I
Sorry.
did second that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Commissioner Kapoor,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Patari, Commissioner Weir,
Yes.
and Chair Johansson.
Yes. Thank you for your time. Okay, move on to item number 3, ENT 2024-0033. Best Massage Wall Signs at 561 Contra Costa Boulevard. Maybe we get a staff report.
All right, so the application before you tonight is for 2 new wall signs for Best Massage. This is going in at 561 Contra Costa Boulevard. And so the proposal tonight is to install 2 new identical wall signs, one on the west side facing Contra Costa Boulevard, one on the east facing 680. Each sign is 20 square feet, so for a total of 40 square feet in sign area being proposed. The maximum sign area allowed on site is 22 square feet, so this exceeds that. And so the application does require a use permit for a major sign adjustment. And therefore, tonight, the applicant is just seeking a recommendation from the Architecture Review Commission because this will need to go to the Planning Commission to consider the sign permit along with that use permit. So I'll now go into a little bit more detail. Here is an aerial of the site. This is the former Check into Cash tenant space, if you're familiar with it. And so, as I mentioned, they're proposing a sign facing Contra Costa Boulevard and then one on the east facing 680. Here just shows the linear dimension of their storefront, which is 22 feet, and that determines the sign area that they're permitted. And so, as I mentioned, here's their proposal for 2 identical wall signs. The sign on the west elevation or the front elevation facing Contra Costa Boulevard both signs consist of a cabinet element with the word best and then massage and individual block channel letters. Both elements are internally illuminated. But the sign on the rear, it's the identical sign component, but it is mounted on an existing raceway that was utilized by the former tenant. Here are some details of the sign. So the cabinet element is 22 inches tall. The letters themselves are 18 inches tall, red with a white border and black returns. And as I mentioned, they are facelit. So as always, staff does a design guideline compliance check and found that these signs are compliant with most of the guidelines. And so they efficiently advertise the business. They're not visually obtrusive for the walls which they're mounted on. They use simple colors and concise messaging. However, the use of raceways are discouraged. Staff notes, though, that this is an existing raceway. And I think in a few slides from now, we have a few proposals, or a proposed condition of approval to address that. And then cabinet signs are also discouraged. And so the cabinet element is a component of this sign. As noted in our staff report, the letters are otherwise block letters, and staff does note that the cabinet is just an element and does provide some visual interest to the sign. And so that's just up for Architectural Review Commission tonight if you felt that the cabinet might be appropriate in this context. And so focusing back on that raceway element. So here, as I mentioned, is a comparison. Check into Cash was had just a longer tenant name. And so it occupied that entire raceway. You can see in the proposed image, the 2 ends of the raceway are now going to be exposed. And so staff is recommending a condition of approval that those be eliminated so that it just simply matches the length of the sign to help further minimize the use of that raceway. and then to gain more compliance with the guideline. That being said, the two discussion points tonight are simply those two: the use of the cabinet element to display best, display the words best, and then modifying the existing raceway to remove those end portions. And so tonight, staff is recommending that the ARC review the information provided, and if deems appropriate, recommend approval to the Planning Commission of the sign permit, including the CEQA exemption, subject to the attached conditions of approval, which already incorporate the recommended elimination of the raceway ends. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for staff?
Did you guys get any color samples live?
We did not get a color sample other than what was provided in the color specification.
Do you know what color it will look like at night? Is this like one of the perforated ones where it would be turned to white at night? Or is it,
No,
Yeah.
no, that was not my understanding. It will be illuminated as the color shown.
any other questions?
Just a bit of a concern with the spacing of the letters. It seems like the fonts are quite wide fonts with a very condensed spacing. That was my only concern.
Okay. The applicant is of last man standing or sitting. Do you have anything you'd like to add? No, not at this time. Any questions for the applicant from Ann? Seeing none, are there any public comments? Seeing none, bring it to the commission for discussion. Thoughts, comments?
That was my only.
I agree with staff about reducing the width of the raceway.
Yeah.
The big block letters hide the raceway. That's nice about them.
Yeah, and potentially if the spacing is adjusted, it might cover more of that raceway.
Yeah.
But I have no problems with the raceway, especially since it faces the freeway.
I imagine if there's an existing one and that got approved, that there's some condition that necessitated it.
I'm curious, what kind of situation do we have if the raceway is reduced in size, like in the back? Like, we'll
would
have
need
some
to be-
discoloration or
It would need to be patched.
Fine.
Yeah,
Painted?
it would need to be painted, and we can add that language to the condition so it's as clear as possible, but it would need to be painted to match the building.
Okay.
I believe the raceway as existing is also painted to
Yes.
match, so we would just match that condition.
Okay,
I think sort of along the lines of this comment that the letters just seem a little
Smushed.
heavy, smushed and heavy to me. I actually like the way the banner looks a little more than the sign. Yeah, there's more spacing. The letters seem a little more, I don't want to use the word delicate, but just, and maybe it's just an illusion because of the spacing that
I'm trying to see, there's a sign in the window that's, seems like it's maybe stretched out a little further.
I see it, I can't tell.
So the sign on the Contra Costa, on the Contra Costa, facing the Contra Costa Road, if it were overall scaled down, that would be better too, I
Yeah.
feel.
Do you see the,
I'm going relationally to the banner and because the banner looks more tasteful.
so I think, since we're doing a recommendation to the planning commission, we could add, as part of our recommendation to move the sign closer to to the banner as terms of the letter spacing and so that may be a,
So I know it's a personal decision, but I'm not a big fan of the best cabinet signage here.
okay.
I actually think it looks a little small compared to the batteries and bulbs or whatever that is next door, you know, it's like disproportionate.
Yeah, they probably have more frontage at batteries and bulbs or something.
Yeah.
So we're making a recommendation, I think. Are there little
Making a-
tweaks?
No.
You know, I imagine, I mean, you start to get into, is this a logo kind of thing with the best?
Yeah, right.
And,
Are you proposing they come up with a logo, or, I'm sorry?
well,
missed it.
no, we're limited in our ability to critique things that are like logos as far as,
Copyrighted.
yeah, copyrighted logo things. So, I think moving it towards the proportions of the,
Can you go to the
Mhm.
podium?
please come to this microphone. We have to get it in the record.
Yeah, I think if for the raceway exposed portion, we can remove it after install. Yeah, we can do.
Okay.
Okay.
So.
So I can make a motion. now.
Okay,
In addition to staff recommendation, we also propose that the signage be brought closer to the banner illustrated in the image with regards to overall width as well as density of letters.
so it might get shorter and longer, it seems, for the proportions.
Yes.
Is that, can I just clarify, is that just for this sign or for both?
Both,
Okay.
both. And the staff recommends that the raceway be trimmed, right?
Mhm.
So just to make an addition, whatever discoloration or like color doesn't match in the bag, be made to match with the rest of the paint.
Okay, someone second?
And sorry, just to be clear, with those changes, are you recommending that the planning commission approve it? Or I just want to clarify what the recommendation is. You can pull this up if.
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
Make the changes and deny.
Okay. We get a second?
I'm the seconder today. I
you.
second.
Commissioner Kapoor,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson,
Yes.
Commissioner Patari, Commissioner Weir,
Yes.
and Chair Johansson.
Yes, thank you. Good luck going forward.
Thank you.
Okay. Any staff communications this evening?
I don't have anything specific. I'll just note, given the upcoming holidays, I'll likely be reaching out
Okay.
soon to see if we all have quorums for the next meetings. So,
Okay.
I have a question.
Oh, good question.
I have a question or comment.
Mhm.
I drove by the Pancake House and it looks like it's being painted. Shouldn't that have come here before it got painted?
Yep. Yeah, we will follow up on that.
Okay.
It's felt like they've been in progress for so long, I feel like.
I do know that they,
No, not patrolling the streets. It was an hour and 20 minutes ago when I turned and came here.
so they do have an application in for architecture review permit.
Okay.
It has not been deemed complete, so hasn't made its way to you yet. But they have also been moving forward separately on interior work through building, which doesn't,
Okay.
yes, which will, it will be Crumbs, a new restaurant. And so their architecture review permit is still under review, which would include building colors. So we'll follow up on that.
So I think that space that's been vacant from when Bed Bath and Beyond closed.
Spirit
Not-
Halloween store.
Yeah, but.
I don't know.
Yeah, we haven't had a application in yet for a permanent tenant.
Why are there so many vacant lots here? Big box stores.
Yeah.
Amazon?
Yeah,
Why?
exactly.
I
The
can see
internet.
that The downtown of Pleasant Hill has so many vacant lots.
Yeah, I don't know if it's specific or unique to Pleasant Hill.
Specifically remember driving every weekend outside of the city to get stuff,
You should open a business.
Hmm.
thinking about it.
Yeah.
When we have to face ourselves.
Yeah.
I have nothing else. Yeah.
Okay, we'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.